Like a lot of things in Fallout, cybernetic organisms have been around since the very first game, and has repeatedly returned to the franchise in some form. However, despite that, they rarely have much in the way of narrative importance. Let's talk about cyborgs. As said, the cyborg has been in each game in some form. There's a fair bit of variety. One flavor is allowing the player to become one. This is mostly done via implants, as is the case in Fallout 1, 2, 3, and New Vegas. Some implants give you a buff in special, as is the case of Fallout 1 and most of the implants in New Vegas, but others are more interesting, such as the Fallout 2 implants or the other implants in New Vegas, as well as the Old World Blues DLC. And additionally, Fallout 3 has a level up perk called Cyborg, as well as their Wired Reflexes perk, which is an implant given to you if you tell Zimmerman about Harkness. Neither of these hold much narrative importance, except for Old World Blues, which allows you to install cybernetic versions of your organs due to the actions of the think tank. The think tank has been regularly lobotomizing people and performing crazy scientific experiments. Some of the creatures created by the think tank, as well as the Enclave, include dogs that have received cybernetics, cyberdogs, such as New Vegas' Rex or Fallout 2's K9. They have cybernetic prosthetic limbs and brains preserved in a glass dome. Brains preserved in a glass dome is a common feature among some cyborgs, such as the Rubber Brain in the think tank. Other examples of cyborgs that focus on life extensions include Rubber House and John Caleb Brad Burton. These are the type of cyborgs that have long lifespans, dependent on machines, although there's certainly a debate on just how much humanity is left in a Rubber Brain. Fallout 4 is a bit more involved narrative-wise. There's a whole faction that's pretty dedicated to cybernetics in the form of the Institute. Cybernetic eyes implants into the brain, as well as creating synthetic creatures ranging from gorillas to humans. In a way, synths are the ultimate cyborg, the perfect combination of man and machine. The cybernetics are completely indistinguishable from the flesh. This is important for Fallout 4's main story because it makes a lot of people worried, accusing each other of being synths, and panic spreads throughout the entire Commonwealth. But its importance evolves past Fallout 4. Being able to tell who is and isn't a cyborg has an effect throughout any narrative, which brings us to our next section. A fair amount of cybernetics in Fallout are either under the surface, where you cannot tell if someone is partly mechanical, or completely all-encapsulating, like the Rubber Brains. Two different extremes. All the implants you can get for your protagonist doesn't really have an effect on your character's physical appearance, short of Fallout 2. It mentions that some implants can warp the natural shape of your character's appearance, lowering the charisma by a point. Other than that, it never really matters. This is a reoccurring theme to even non-playable characters. You don't really see anyone walking around with a robot arm or leg. Assuming that some of the information of Fallout 3 strategy guide is canon, even Star Paladin Cross is a cyborg. This is possible. The practice of installing implants is a thing in the original Fallout, but you don't really see any sign that Cross is a cyborg in-game. Even if she flat out told you, you wouldn't be able to tell. Fallout 4 is another example, with Kellogg. He's full of cybernetics, including his eyes, but you cannot really tell from looking at him. But to be fair, the Institute's technology was intentionally evolved past the point of being able to differentiate between human anatomy and cybernetic anatomy. I should mention that Fallout 4 also has Proctor Ingram using a power armor frame to walk around, but I don't believe she's permanently attached to it and wouldn't really qualify as a cyborg. Besides the already mentioned cyberdogs, the one character that comes to mind as an example of a mild cyborg is a lieutenant in the original Fallout who has a cybernetic eye, but it holds absolutely no plot importance. It just looks fairly cool. It's a bit strange. They certainly fit the atmosphere of Fallout. It was in the first game. We have a whole subspecies of dog with these physical implants, but almost no one actually has these cybernetic prosthetics, and if they do, we can't tell. Adding more of these types would really change up the atmosphere in an interesting way. Could have a few merchants willing to sell their mechanical arms to the player character, which changes up the actual game model, affects some of your stats with benefits and possible drawbacks, have people commenting on them, and the world itself may have some people who face a level of discrimination for buying and using these implants, especially those who bought them but didn't actually need to. Maybe have some naturalists who believe that the body shouldn't really be tampered with, and if you lose an arm, an eye, or a leg, it was meant to be. As well as some semi-naturalists who believe it's only acceptable to buy one if you truly needed to. Though perhaps not making that the main topic of the game. Fallout 4 was pretty involved with cyborgs to a degree, asking the what is a human question. But a couple of side quests and a few characters who are pretty opinionated could be okay. More than anything, I just feel that it's pretty disappointing that most of these cybernetic implants changed nearly nothing about the game other than altering my stats with a pure benefit, and I would love to see it actually affect a lot more. Plus, it could really open up the game's atmosphere in artistic direction, which could in turn affect the world. For instance, competing in-game companies could have different design directions and purposes for cybernetic prosthetics. Some designs of an implant could be sleeker than others, while some may be bulkier and more noticeable. Maybe some of the bulkier designs could have a benefit that the sleeker ones do not. And maybe others too would prefer to have their designs unassuming as possible. I don't know, different thoughts, different ideas. I just think these more moderate cyborgs have been greatly underdeveloped and underutilized in the games, and definitely want to see more go down this path. What are your thoughts? What do you think about the cyborgs? Continue as is, or would you prefer to introduce more?